There are now billions of dollars available for stimulus checks, and you can claim these stimulus payments if you're eligible for it. People have wanted a fourth round of stimulus checks to go out to a more targeted group of people. This means stimulus payments will be sent to those in need if Congress gets the job done. So as the crisis only continues during this year, the US economy is still trying to return back to normal and bring millions of people to more financially stable states.
And why in my first year in office, more jobs were created than ever any time in American history, 6.6 million jobs. And you.
It is clear, everybody, that lawmakers must pass another round of checks to help people that are being financially impacted by the crisis. It's really sad to see that so many people are still worried about how they're going to find food and pay for their monthly expenses, even when Congress can get the job done and send out stimulus payments to help them out. About 61 million Americans have brought $93 billion to the collective households through the child tax credit and the monthly payments of those. Unlike the $1,400 stimulus payment that nearly all households received, the child tax credit payment could have a huge impact on your 2021 returns. As families file federal taxes, some should expect to receive smaller returns from child tax credits. But that doesn't mean less money overall. That's because many already received the money through monthly payments, and for the first time ever, the government sent out child tax credit payments on a monthly basis to eligible families in 2021, rather than a one-time payment on tax returns. So from July to December, parents and guardians received between $250 and $300 per month as part of the Build Back Better plan.
You face, which, by the way, even, and I'm not being critical of state legislatures or others, but people don't know the full responsibility and that you all have, even other elected officials. I mean, I'm not being solicitous. It's just true. And by the way, that rescue plan is still delivering. I urge all of you to use the flexibility we built into that law and spend those funds wisely to build a future around working people who make up the communities you run. Put these funds to work to keep people on the job, connect people with better jobs.
Now, for the first time ever, the US government sent out child tax credit payments to people that were eligible for it. An important thing to remember, though, is that the second half of the credit will now be claimed on 2021 tax returns, and so since larger payments came in last year, some parents will receive less money than usual when claiming their 2021 taxes. The IRS has announced they have mailed out Letter 6419, which explains how much money families received in the monthly child tax credit payments. That's done to determine the amount of credit they can still claim. The letter also showed the number of qualifying children used to calculate the advance payments, as well as details on a repayment protection for tax returns. Families who received advance payments must now file a 2021 tax return and compare the advance payments received in 2021 and the child tax credit with the child tax credit amount that they can claim for 2021. However, the IRS has said that there were also some eligible people who did not opt to receive advanced child tax credit payments, and they cannot claim the full amount of the credit for the 2021 tax return. This includes families who don't normally need to file a tax return. Now, the latest obstacle over the next round of stimulus checks is whether they should be targeted to people who need them the most. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have yet to call for changes to phase out rules for the next round of stimulus checks. This means the next round of checks may also go out to wealthier people. That's a problem for many Republican lawmakers and a few key Democrats. Now, big question is, everybody, will you receive the targeted stimulus payment this year? Well, Mitch McConnell has noted that any additional stimulus relief should be smart and targeted and not just in a precise deluge of money that will direct huge sums to those who don't need it. And plus, a group of Republican senators have asked President Biden to consider another round of $1,000 checks, specifically for those who need assistance the most. So there's clear support, everybody, among people that another stimulus check should be sent out.
President.
Republican whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, the Senate in a quorum call.
Yes, we are.
I would ask unanimous consent that the quorum call be lifted.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I don't need to tell anyone except perhaps the Democrat Party here in Congress that our country has a major inflation problem. The first year of the Biden administration has been characterized by a huge increase in inflation. Inflation is currently at a 40-year high. Let me just repeat that, Mr. President. Inflation is currently at a 40-year high. The last time inflation was this bad, E.T. was just premiering in movie theaters, and Return of the Jedi hadn't even come out yet. Inflation is so bad that despite wage increases in 2021, Americans saw a de facto pay cut. December survey by the New York Times found that just 17% of Americans said their wages had kept up with inflation. Mr. President, the White House Chief of Staff may think inflation is, quote, a high-class problem. But for the mom at the grocery store wondering if she can afford to buy ground beef this week, or for the young worker just starting out who's wondering if she can afford to fill up her car, inflation is a very real problem. Americans are struggling. They're facing huge price increases at the grocery store, huge price increases at the gas pump, big increases in the cost of household goods like furniture and bedding and laundry equipment, massive increases in the cost of fuel oil and gas service, higher electric bills, and on and on. Inflation is weighing down businesses too, from larger businesses to family farms and ranches. A recent survey from the National Federation of Independent Business found that 22% of small businesses consider inflation to be the biggest challenge facing their business. A 20-point increase from the beginning of 2021. A 20-point increase. It's no wonder that 69% of Americans disapprove of the president's handling of inflation, and 56% disapprove of his handling of the economy. Mr. President, inflation is a major burden for American families and businesses, a fact that seems utterly lost on members of the Democrat Party. While American families struggle, Democrats' focus is on anything but inflation. What's worse, many Democrats are still hoping to pass elements of their reckless tax and spending spree, the so-called Build Back Better plan, despite the fact that it was a bloated Democrat spending spree that helped get us into this inflation mess in the first place. Yes, while the pandemic created inflationary pressures, a big reason we're in our current inflation mess is because of Democrats' decision to push through an unnecessary and partisan $2 trillion spending bill last March. When Democrats took office last January, inflation was well within an acceptable range, what's known as the target inflation rate. It might have stayed there. The Democrats now decided that they needed to pass a massive government spending spree under the guise of COVID relief. And I might add, mere weeks after Congress had already passed a major COVID bill. That's right, December 2020 saw Congress pass its fifth bipartisan COVID relief bill. And that one was nearly $1 trillion piece of legislation that met essentially all current pressing COVID needs. But the ink was barely dry on the page before